Hello, everybody. Tomorrow, October 15th, is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day. And as a whole, October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Month. The topic is very important to me, but I will explain also how it relates to the EB community as well. So let's get started. Welcome to Butterfly Talk. This is a new episode, episode 8, I believe. Today's topic is pregnancy and infant loss awareness. Since tomorrow, October 15th, is the official day. I wanted to start with my mug, of course. You know I love my mugs. And this is one that I actually found at a thrift store. And I'm like, oh my God, that's me. This whole mug has this image here of the angels, has a little story behind it. I went to Firenze in Italy at the Uffizi Gallery in 1998. I had been to Florence before. I've been to the Uffizi Gallery before. But when I went there this time, I entered, for those that have never been there, I know that's probably most of you. I'm Italian, so I've been to these places. There is like a galley, an entryway sort of thing, and it goes very far, and then there's all these little rooms. And in one of these little rooms there was this painting, but this is just a little portion of the painting. The painting is huge. It's about yay big, and it goes all the way up, and the angels are just in a little corner. And so when I saw that, I remember I wanted to take a picture so bad, but I couldn't, because you couldn't take photos. They might have changed it at the time. This was 20 some years ago that I went. So when I saw this mug, I'm like, oh, this is it. That's my angels, right? So that's the story behind that. And then I have my shirt of the day is this one. Blessed Mama, Alex, Nikki, and Connor. This shirt I got last year from one of those, no, I don't know if it was Personalized Mall or one of those places. And I say mama because an Italian mom is mama. That's how I call my mom, mama. And of course, I always include Alex in everything I do. For those that don't know me, Alex is the baby that I had that was stillborn at full term. And 7 months later, I had a miscarriage at 8 weeks. And so that's, that is something that is always with me. But how does it relate to EB? Well, we took a lot of photos of Alex, and he had skin patches and patches of skins that were coming off. Now, if I'm brave enough, I'm going to put a photo here of that. If not, if I don't do it, it's because I wasn't brave enough. But it was really after Nikki was born, it was obvious that Alex had EB. Of course, we didn't know it at the time. At the time, we didn't know. The doctor said maybe a cord accident. We don't know what happened. They asked me if we wanted to do not a biopsy, a autopsy. And I just didn't feel like, don't touch him. Don't touch him. And so we didn't do it, but that's fine because it's not like they would have looked for EB anyway. So I remember talking to Dr. Marinkovich at Stanford when Nikki was just a little over 1 year old. And I told him about Alex, and I asked him if stillbirths is common with EB. And he said it's hard to say because obviously those babies don't get diagnosed, right? However, moms that had kids with EB, most especially the recessive dystrophic or junctional forms, which are the two more severe ones, they do tend to have multiple stillbirths, miscarriages, that kind of stuff. So it goes without saying that the body, knows there's something wrong, And then, in my case, I went all the way to full term. Alex was due on February 26th, which was a Sunday. And I remember on that Sunday, my mom had come in from Italy to help me out, and I just didn't feel the baby move. I thought it just felt like he weighed on me, and I didn't know what was wrong. And so then on Monday, I called the doctor, and I'm like, I don't feel the baby move. Something's wrong. Although I'd never even crossed my mind that it could be that. Never crossed my mind. And so the doctor had me come in. They said, oh, well, at the very end, there's not much room to move. I'm like, okay, but he was moving the other day. He's not like he was much bigger than before, right? And then when they did the ultrasound, found out there was no heartbeat. So that was horrible. And a lot of babies that are born with junctional Hurlitz or some simplex Dullenmera, I believe. I could be wrong with that because I'm not too versed in the simplex because I don't know that many people with it. I mostly deal with other patients that deal with the same thing that Nikki is, right? And so infants die from this. From EB, from RDEB, from junctional Hurlitz. I met several moms whose babies died from junctional Hurlitz EB as infants. And so it does relate because it's a loss nonetheless. Okay, so your baby's sick, but it's still a shock. You don't expect that. You expect to have a perfect baby like everybody else seems to have, right? And so it's really hard. So let me see. So I have some coping techniques that I hope you can take to heart during this day of pregnancy loss, and infant pregnancy loss. Now, number one is grieve. Grieve. I've met a lot of moms who don't want to grieve. They just go on, and within a month they're pregnant again, and they don't grieve. And I remember going to my first pregnancy loss support group, and that's what they told us. You have to grieve. You have to cry. You have to just deal with it. They said it to me in a way like, imagine grief being on this big hole in the middle of the road, and there's no way around it. You can't just fly through it. You gotta go in it, go all the way down deep, and come out the other side. And so I did that. I did the work, and that wasn't pretty. I cried all the way to work. I used to have a 45-minute drive to work, and I used to cry all the way to work. And I used to be so angry. How dare you do this to me? It's like all these crazy things. You didn't do this to me, but at the time you just get it all out. You just gotta just let it out. Let it out. And you need to grieve. I remember a nice poem that said, acceptance of grief is like having a pebble in your shoe. You work it until it's a comfortable spot, and you keep walking. And that is so true. And also mirrors something my grandma told me after Alex was stillborn. My grandma, my dad's mom, had a baby that was stillborn in 1946, 1947. My dad was a teenager. My dad was 16, 17 when this happened. He's the only one of, my aunts don't remember it, but my dad did because he was the oldest. And so he said she was in full term. She was maybe 7-8 months along, and couldn't feel the baby move. And it's not like nowadays. They find out the baby's dead. They just induce labor. So you don't want to walk around with a dead baby inside of you. I have heard stories of women that actually died from an infection or from whatever reason. I don't know what would be the reason, but there's obviously women died because they carried a dead baby in the uterus for weeks at a time. Obviously, So back then she just kept it going. It's a miracle she lived, I guess. But my dad was in the delivery room No, I don't think my dad was in the living room. My dad saw the baby. That's all I know. That my dad saw the baby right after it came out, and it was a little girl. And she said she was all black. She was black, Sylvia. She was black. And it was buried with, we're talking just after the war, 1946, 1947 in Italy. I mean, the World War II devastated Europe. And Italy was very, very devastated. And so at the time, it's not like they had money to have a funeral for this baby. So they went ahead and put her body in a coffin from somebody that had died at the same time. So that's what my grandma told me. My grandma told me, look, it hurts like hell. She told me on the phone. And at the time that we talked, she was in her 90s, because she was born in 1903 and Alex was still born in 1995. And she told me, so she was 92? She said, look, it hurts like hell. I know. I know. But as time goes on, you just find it. You find your peace. You just learn to live with it, basically. That was the best advice ever, I think. And coming from a person that had been through it, I miss my grandma. I grew up with my grandma. I used to go there to visit every Saturday. I'm getting teary eyes just thinking about her because she was just such a great lady. But anyway, so grieve. That's the thing. Because if you don't grieve now, you'll grieve later and it'll be worse. I've seen this. I've met with many women who lost babies or children of any kind, and they just oh, okay, I'm not going to deal with this, And it doesn't matter how you grieve. If you grieve in silence, if you grieve by writing a book like I did, to me, writing it down and talking about it was very therapeutic. When I went to my first support group, for example, I couldn't even speak the first time they asked me. They went around the room, okay, tell us about your baby. And so they would say, blah, 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 this and that, this happened, next. And then I was the last one to go because I was the newest one there. I couldn't barely just get a word out because I was just a mess. I was just, I couldn't talk. But as I went on, more time, it was once a month, and then I started finding these online groups. Of course, back then, 1995, it wasn't, what it is today. Now there's Facebook groups for everything under the sun. But back then, I think I had found a Prodigy support group. I had Prodigy at the time called Baby Loss Support. And so I was in that. And then I had found a listserv about loss, but it was loss. It was basically just any kind of loss. And there was a subgroup under that for children, but it was really bizarre. I didn't feel like I could speak. I don't know. I remember there was this one lady right after I joined posting that her sister had a stillborn baby and then she killed herself. And I just, that's insane. To me, I understand the suicidal thing. I do get it. I wrote about it in my book. After 7 months after I had Alex, I had to bury Alex, I had a miscarriage. It was October 12th, as a matter of fact, 1995. And it's not that it hurt more. I was happy that, gosh, if this baby's going to die too, I don't really want to go 9 months to then, do all of that again. It's kind of cruel, right? But at the same time, it put me in a funk. And I often call that my suicidal phase, even though I would never take my own life. Mainly because I know how much it hurts to lose a child, and I would never do that to my parents. I adore my parents. I just can't do this to them. I just couldn't do it. The suicidal thing, it's a very interesting aspect. I had a cousin who was bipolar, who ended up, he was threatening suicide for years. He finally did it, and I was just really sad about that because to me, he was a great guy. He was a little bit weird, but he was bipolar, and I was just happy that when he finally did it, his parents had already passed. So that was my big thing, like, oh, thank God for that. But anyway, You say, I forgot my thing. You gotta grieve. You gotta grieve. You gotta grieve. You gotta grieve. You gotta get it out of your system. You gotta be able to go to work, not crying all the time, you know. And I noticed that, you know, at first it was like I would cry every day going to work. And then I would cry maybe a few times a week, you know, and then it was less and less. And then it came to a point where like I just kind of, this is what it is. What are you going to do? Death is so final. There's just no, you know, with EB, at least you know, hey, I can do this for him. I can do that for him. I can try to do this and that and the other. But with the loss, it is just horrible. So that's my first advice to you. Grieve. You must grieve. Okay. On the topic of grief, let me read you a little excerpt from my book. This is my butterfly child, although this expert will also be in Losing Alex. The book Losing Alex that I wrote is basically the first 200 pages of Butterfly Child. There's a few differences here and there, just because I had to make it flow better, but this is the same. So this is on the topic of needing to grieve. And this is page 20, and it's right under the photo that I have me holding Alex. And I said, one of Nick's aunts, Nick is my ex-husband, one of Nick's aunts told us not long thereafter that when she was a nurse in the 1950s and 1960s, the mother would never see her baby that was stillborn, parentheses. They would put the infant in a paper sack, and she was always in charge of bringing this sack to the morgue on the other side of the hospital. I chill at the thought of that image going through my head as I write this. Apparently, health professionals once believed that the most helpful approach to dealing with the grieving mother was to eliminate the contact, hence the bond. Separate and break the attachments, basically forget as quickly as possible. Let's not prolong the heartbreak. Now we know parents can resolve their sorrow easier when given a chance to connect, hold, and convey love for their child. Back then, mothers were told to go home and just have another baby. There was no grief counseling, no support groups. Hence, as the subsequent children were born into the family, one can help but wonder how they might have been the recipients of their parents' unresolved grief. Without the opportunity to mourn, depression, anger ensues, and existing/future children suffer the consequences. So you grieve not only to help yourself, but to help your family, your other children, if there's any, or future children if you're going to have children in the future. So that grieve. Number 2, find your tribe. And I already touched on it. Like I found that baby loss support group on Prodigy. And you know, at the time, the thing is, I mean, if you can imagine how bad it was in 1940s and 1950s, where Nick's aunt was talking about, even the 90s were not that great, because I didn't even know the word stillborn until Alex was stillborn. When the nurse came in and was talking to somebody, say, yeah, he was stillborn. And I'm like, what's that word? Is that how you call it? I didn't even know. Of course, everybody knows about the word miscarriage, you know. But, you know, most moms, once they pass the first trimester, they feel like they're good to go. And celebrities at the time, and still to this day, to some extent, they don't really talk about their losses. After Chrissy Teigen talked about her loss, she was about more than 20 weeks. So she, you know, they were able to hold the baby and everything. It's after she came out that Kate Beckinsale came out and said she had a loss at 20 weeks. Now, 20 weeks is 4 months. And that's, the baby's already, you know, it's not that tiny. It's not, you know, 6 weeks is this big. It's as big as your nails, 6 weeks, right? When I had my loss at 8 weeks, I actually saw the baby in a sack. And I know this sounds gross to people who haven't been through it, right? But to me, that was the most precious thing. And at 8 weeks, the baby was about the size of my thumb, and it was also the shape of my thumb. I thought that was really weird because you could see two little bitty beads, look like maybe they were eyes or something, and then the start of something that would probably become shoulders. But it was tiny at 8 weeks. It was just this little thing. And so to be able to talk about this to people that understand, it's just beyond important. It just really normalizes it a little bit. It makes you, okay, I'm not a freak. This happens to other people. I'm not the only one, and all of the stuff that goes around it. It was at the support group, as a matter of fact, that there was this mom there that I lost touch with. She moved back east, and I never saw her again. But she was a big into scrapbooking, which I had never heard about at the time. We're talking 1995, okay, people. Like, I know it seems like I'm talking about 100 years ago. But 1995, that was still 30 years ago, right? Well, 25. So I was at that. And so, let me show you. Okay. So because of her, I made this book for Alex. And I had bought everything Sesame Street for Alex. And so I got this book. And I had, the mom of one of my friends used to do this sort of thing where you put the cover with it. So she did that for me, and not cute. So anyway, so that was Diana, I believe. Thank you, Diana, if you're watching this. So anyway, at this point, I put everything in here. I put, this is his picture with his imprints, his hands and his footprints. And then I put here cards that I got, this ultrasound. This is the card that I had given my husband to announce the pregnancy. Then, of course, the pregnancy test, and then this is all the different pregnancy planner I put in there. And then just, his death certificate. This family tree, because, guys know me in genealogy. And then, of course, all kinds of stuff about me being pregnant, poems, me at the hospital, just his baby bracelet, the hospital card, poems, cards, all kinds of things. Pictures, more pictures, and more pictures. The hospital took photos, and then of course the funeral. More poems. Anything angel. Irma Bombeck's quote about losing your children, who came out of my first Mother's Day. So that was very poignant. Father's Day poems, Walk to Remember, balloons, our quilts that we made, the Tree of Life in Desert Samaritan Hospital. I have a leaf for Alex, and then other things. I mean, I have First Christmas, pictures of, anyway. And I also have a box. I have a box with all angels around it, and I didn't bring it in here to show, but it has, inside I have the little outfit that he wore. I have his little hat. I have a lock of his hair. He had hair, which is kind of interesting because both Nikki and Connor were born bald. There's no hair there. I couldn't have taken a block of hair from them if I wanted to. So anyway, so that's my book, and it's very, very special to me. I also have a video that I'll put a link to for those that are brave enough to go look at it. And it's a video of me being pregnant, and then in the delivery room. So you'll see Alex in the video. And then, of course, the funeral, and actually page by page of that book. So in the support group that I belonged to, we put everything on the tape, because at the time it was tape, right? And I passed it along. And you have to think that I made this video without a computer. So that's how much I wanted to do it. I had to put music behind it. It was just, it's really hard for me to watch, but I'm really happy I have it. It's one of those things, So Find your tribe. They will help you. And then, okay, and number 3, so grieve, find your tribe, memorialize your baby. Of course, one of them is the book. And then I have a lot of trinkets, I gotta tell you. The one thing that the hospital did is did an imprint of his hand and his foot. And so we bronzed it. There's actually companies that do this. Isn't it wonderful? And we put his name and a little bear sleeping. And then in the back, there's his loving memory, Alexander Luciano Zahorchek, March 1st, 1995. Isn't that cute? So this is always in the house. So that's one thing. I also have a lot of angel figures. Like one of them, for example, I have a bunch of these. This is one of the smallest one I have. But anything that shows angels on a cloud, I gotta have. It's just stronger than me. It's in the cart before I even think about it, there. And then, of course, I have precious moments. I have probably about, I have a couple more here. I have probably about 5 or 6 of precious angels. Some are Christmas ornaments. This is the first one I bought. I saw it at the store. I started crying like a baby. I'm like, oh my God, I can't afford it, but I gotta get it, so I had to get it. Beautiful. And I have a couple more. This one, believe it or not, I found at the thrift store. I'm like, who gives this away? And it's great because it has music. It plays Brahms' Lullaby. Yeah, no, doesn't want to play. Come on. I have to do more, I guess. You can do it. I don't know. Maybe it's broken. I don't know. Anyway, and then the other one, and of course Diana again did this for me, Kelly's mom. I saw this image of a mom giving her baby to the angel, and I was a mess. And so my friend Diana, she's the mom of one of my friends. She said, let me get it for you, Sylvia. And then she put the Alex March 1st, 95. Isn't that beautiful? I have a lot of regular, any angel that I find, I gotta have it. I had even subscribed to this company who did little angel ornaments. And so they sent me so many. I did this whole tree that's up year long. And it's next to the fireplace. And I even have on it like a little memorial ornament for everybody in my family that I love that has passed. So I have one for Alex, of course, my grandma's, my aunt Marisa, my godmother. My middle name is Marisa. That's from her. She died on my birthday. And so to me, it was like devastating. But she died 10 years ago. So I have hers. I have, my Uncle Tony. I have whoever in my life that died has an ornament. And it's in the angel tree by the fireplace. And it's on year round. It's not very tall. It's maybe this tall. It's all white. But it's beautiful. Let me see what else. Yeah, I have lots of jewelry as well. I wanted to show you a couple of them that I have here. This one I got from Etsy. It has the initial A for Alex, of course, and then there's like this little birthstone and the wings, and then it has a little saying in it. I don't know if you can read it. It says, I will hold you in my heart until I can hold you in heaven. So that's beautiful. And then the other one that my husband is the greatest. He has a reminder on his phone to comfort me on March 1st. Can you believe that? So anyway, this is another thing that he did for me. It has all my kids' names, Connor, Alex, and Nikki. Isn't that cute? Because Alex always, he's part of the family. He may not be here physically, but he's here nonetheless. I know some people may think it's weird, but I feel it. There's too many weird things happen. When Connor was a baby, for example, I would wake up in the morning and his swing would be going by itself. And it's a swing that you have to turn on. You can't, it doesn't just go by its own. You have to turn it on with the button. And as soon as I came into the room, it would just kind of slow down and stop. I'm like, okay. My stepdaughter, she always claimed she could see ghosts or spirits with just the corner of her eye, you know. And once she came into the room and she stopped, startled, and I'm like, what's happening? So for a moment there, I saw a little boy sitting next to you. And I'm like, what do you mean? How old? You know, and she said however old he looked, and I'm like, well, that's how old Alex would be, you know. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But there's something to be said about that. And then another thing you can do is for cope mechanism is just read what other people have gone through. I've read so many books. Oh my God, I probably read over 100 books just on the topic of pregnancy, loss, infant, how to cope, and this and that. And of course, I have my own. I wrote my own, Losing Alex. I'll put the link below. A couple of them I have here that I really liked were A Piece of My Heart. That's a good one. And then Life Touches Life. I like that too. But there's so many. I will put a link to, I think I have a list on Amazon of all my favorite lost books. I'll put a link to that. And then this is one of my favorites though. Growing Up in Heaven. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful book. James Van Praagh is one of my favorites. I mean, it really started believing in life after life, right? The afterlife. It's really interesting. But the book that I'm about to start actually is this one from Gloria Vanderbilt. For those who don't know, Gloria Vanderbilt had 2 sons from her husband, and one of her sons committed suicide. The other son is Anderson Cooper, right? But this is her other son. And so I thought for the longest time, I only read about little angels and pregnancy, infant loss, blah, blah, blah. But I know Niki's not going to be with me forever. People are surprised he lived to be this long. He's going to be 24. His doctor told us he wouldn't live to see his first birthday. And here he is. He's almost 24. And so, you know, losing an adult child, even though this guy didn't have a baby, whatever, grief is grief, you know. And I've always liked to learn how people learn to cope. I want to know how people cope. How do they do it? You know? And so that's that. And I believe, one more thing. One more thing. So I find these cute little frames with angels. And so I have a few of these around the house. Isn't that adorable? Oh my God. And then this is just me and Alex, because Alex is always part of my family. How do I say, when people ask me, how many children do you have? I know a lot of moms have a hard time with this, especially if they lost a child. Well, I always say, well, I have 3. 1 in heaven and 2 on earth. Of course, I should add Emily too. Emily was the little girl that I miscarried at 8 weeks. But I don't know. I only saw, you know, she is part of the family. But I think losing a baby a full term is a whole different animal there. The grief is enormous. And anyway, my heart goes out to everybody that had to bury a child. It's just the most horrendous thing. So anyway, that's all for today. I'm going to put links to everything that I talked about. I may even put some stuff, you know, on the side if I feel like it. I'm strong enough to do it. And if you have anything to share with me. You want to maybe be a guest of the show. You want to talk about your life, about your kid with EB, or you're a company. You want to talk about what you're doing to help EB families or whatever it is. Just leave me a message. ebmama@gmail.com is my nickname. And to everybody out there, be kind to one another. And see you soon. Bye-bye.